Tell me everything I need to know about privacy. Okay, so we're going to jump into this and we're going to look at some articles from Apple and discussing privacy. And it's really important that I want to say everybody uses the same definition of privacy, because so many people will have, different ideas on what that actually ends up meaning. Apple is really, really good at keeping your information private. And we're going to go through this a little bit and show you kind of what Apple is referring to when they're talking about your privacy and what you should expect when you're using your iPhone or iPad or your Mac. The problem usually ends up being with your information getting out there into cyberspace that it's actually other tech companies that are putting it out there, or it's because, for lack of a better word, you're hacked. And it's not because your phone is being hacked or anything. It's usually going to be because you're doing these small things to put your information out there into cyberspace. And we're going to look as well at third-party apps, because they're also probably one of the biggest culprits in having your information out there in the wide world of web. So let's go ahead and kind of take a look at some articles here and how Apple is defining your privacy and what you should expect them to be able to do with all of your information. Okay, so we're going to just look very quickly at two articles. And like I said before, I'm always going to be linking all of these articles down below. Definitely make sure that you read them. A lot of people are audio listeners that they can learn just by listening to somebody explain something. Others are visual learners and they need to read it on their own. That's why I always link everything. So, like I said, there's only a few things we're going to see here. So if you're reading through this privacy statement, Apple is very bold in what it's saying, that they really do respect your privacy. And what you need to really kind of take away from this privacy statement, and what I'm at least trying to explain here at the beginning, is that Apple does not sell your information. Apple is not interested in selling your information to outside companies, outside sources. They don't do that. Other companies can't make that claim, but Apple does not do that. So in this article here, we're going to just look at a couple things, and I want to give you kind of an idea here. So we're going to use Maps as an example. So as you can see, it says the Maps app doesn't associate your data with your Apple ID, and Apple doesn't keep a history of where you've been. Now, this is kind of important. So the Maps app doesn't associate your data with your Apple ID. Now, this is not the only app that does this. There's several apps that you might be using on a daily basis that are Apple apps. And the key thing to understand is that when you're using those apps, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is information that's being stored with your Apple ID. Okay, I hope that really makes sense to you, because I've talked in the past about how important your Apple ID is, because all your information is there. But Apple is really strict in what information it's actually going to keep history of or keep record of. And there's a lot of apps that are not going to be keeping that history, and Maps is one of them. The other thing we want to look at here, just to give you a good understanding, is messages. Messages are seen by who you send them to. Apple can't read your iMessages while they're being sent between you and the person you're texting. So think of it this way. If you send somebody a iMessage from an iPhone to another iPhone, that message is encrypted. No one can read that except you, the sender, and then the person who's receiving it. These are encrypted through the iMessage server. So even though you might be backing up your messages to the iCloud, you can't go to iCloud.com, sign into your account, and then look at all of your text messages, all of your messages. You can't see them there. And the reason is because they're encrypted. So they can't show up on that website because they're encrypted there. You can only see them on the device that can actually receive them. I don't know for like carriers. Some carriers probably have encrypted text messages, but I'm sure that there are plenty of carriers out there that don't. And so you've got to make sure that you really kind of understand what Apple is saying here. This is actually really, really important, that people can't intercept your messages. And even if they were able to intercept them, they wouldn't be able to read them. It can only be read by the device that's sending them and the one that's receiving them. Okay, so the next article that we just want to look at very quickly here, once again, I'll link it below. This is, you have control over what you share. It's from apple.com, privacy/control. And we're going to keep scrolling down here. Okay. A couple things to look at here. So, privacy information on the App Store. So, Apple, starting in December 2020, what they started to do is force app developers to put more information on their app page in the App Store talking about your privacy. So, app developers have to actually make sure that they're telling you exactly what they are going to be receiving from you. Like when you download and use their app, the Apple is getting more and more strict about these developers have to tell you what information they're actually receiving. So Apple is kind of forcing these developers, but it's then up to you. You've got to be the one who's willing to read the fine print. You've got to read the information that you're basically authorizing these companies to use. I won't mention the social networking app that a buddy of mine wanted me to download, and I went to the App Store, started to read it, and said, nope, I'm not giving this company this information that it wants. So it's got to be up to you. You've got to take responsibility about that. All right, so the other thing to kind of look at here very quickly, because we're going to discuss this more in depth, is third-party apps and permissions. Apple gives you transparency and control over the data you share with the apps. Apps may request access to things such as your location, contacts, etc. You'll receive a prompt with an explanation the first time a third-party app wants to use this data, so you can make an informed decision about granting permission. Again, guys, this is all on you. You've got to be the one who's willing to say, if I'm going to use this app, then I've got to be willing to give this company access to all of my information, you know, whatever it's requesting. So that's just totally on you. And I just want to clarify something here too, because this is important. No app can access the microphone or camera without your permission. So again, read the fine print when you download these apps, guys, because you might end up downloading a calendar app and it's saying, hey, we need access to your camera and all of your photos, and we need access to your microphone, etc., etc. It's like, that's the kind of app you do not want to download. Okay, so that's a brief, quick overview about just some of the privacy and policy procedures that Apple has. With that being said, I want to discuss with you so you have a better understanding of downloading some of these third-party apps. And I'm going to give you an example, and I may or may not link an article to the what I'm going to tell you, but you can actually go research it yourself. So here's a good example of an app that had a huge security breach, and the app is called WhatsApp. Now, a lot of people use WhatsApp, so if you know what it is, great. If you don't know what it is, don't worry about it, but just use this as your example. So WhatsApp is a way for people to kind of communicate. It's very popular to use for people who were trying to speak with other people, you know, in another country. So it's very popular. Well, WhatsApp had a huge security flaw a couple years ago. And the security flaw, basically what it allowed to have happen is someone could download WhatsApp onto their iPhone, and if they didn't turn on all of the security that they were supposed to turn on when they downloaded WhatsApp, then what could actually happen is, and the way this was working is hackers and scammers were able to actually go through the WhatsApp. They were able to send like a phone call to the phone that they knew had downloaded WhatsApp, and since WhatsApp needs access to all of your contacts, what this sort of hack allowed for was these hackers can contact your phone, and then from your phone actually send out a message to other people through WhatsApp. And when that message would reach these other people, it would say, hey, this is so-and-so, and they would recognize the number and say, hey, click this link, I need you to send me a message real quick. Well, when people would click on that, it would basically send a verification code to these hackers, basically, and then what they were able to do is download WhatsApp and then sign in on to the phone or the users who they had just contacted. I know that's a terrible explanation, but just roll with it. The long story short of what I'm trying to explain to you right here is the security flaw and how this whole hacking business happened had nothing to do with Apple. It had nothing to do with the iPhone. It had everything to do with WhatsApp. And that's the kind of thing that you've got to be understanding and you've got to be prepared for. Is if you download third-party apps, your iPhone and Apple is not going to be able to prevent every possibility, because that's part of what you're agreeing to when you download these apps. If they have security flaws, then you've got to go to the app developer. It's not the phone and it's not Apple. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at here is location services. Now, location services is kind of an all-inclusive term and talking about privacy and how to access the privacy on your phone. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through, we're going to do the articles first, and then we're going to come back and take a look at a video to show you exactly how to access it. So let's go ahead and just take a look at these real quick. Okay, so in this article, this is about privacy and location services in iOS and iPadOS. Now, again, since we're discussing privacy, I'm going to kind of emphasize here, I do this every time, but this article is from support.apple.com. The reason that's so important is because this article is coming straight from Apple. This is something that you know Apple is releasing, so you can trust this information. It's not, I don't get any of my information from third-party websites. I take it straight from Apple, so you guys can trust it. So, we're going to go through this quickly here. But the privacy settings. Privacy settings help give you control over which apps have access to information stored on your device. For example, you can allow a social networking app to use your camera, so you can take and upload pictures to that app. So for example, this is talking about like Instagram. If you download Instagram, you need to be able to upload your photos to Instagram. So Instagram wants access to your camera and photos so that it is able to work. So that's the kind of thing that would make sense. If you download Instagram, yeah, okay, well, I need to give it permission to have access to my camera. That's kind of the whole point of Instagram. So that's kind of what this is talking about. But all of these things that you see here, you would go into your settings and then scroll down and click on privacy. And these would be all of the Apple apps that would be storing some information through like your Apple ID or whatever. And your third-party apps, what you would do, and we'll take a look at this in the video, you would click on like one of these apps or contacts, for example, and then it will show you what third-party apps you downloaded that has access to your contacts or to your calendars. And so that's why, you know, Apple gives you these tools so that you can actually see what apps did I download and what do they have access to. And now the last thing I want to mention here, because I want you guys to read this article on your own, but this right here, this is really, really important. I'm going to tell you how it is that I do this. So give apps permission to use your location. The first time an app tries to access your location, it must ask for your permission. You see a prompt explaining which app is asking for permission to use your location, as well as the app developer's reason for requesting it. So they give you an example. So allow maps to access your location while you're using the app. Your current location will be displayed, blah, blah, blah. Right here, guys, this is the one that I always click on. Always. I only ever click allow once. The reason I only ever click allow once is whatever app I'm using at that moment, whether it's an Apple app or a third-party app, if it asks me for permission for my location, to me, hey, that's private. I don't share my location with apps. I don't share it with third-party developers. They don't need to know that. So if I need to use that app and it has to have access to my information at that moment, I'm going to only ever hit allow once. That means that when I close that app, it's done. It's no longer running. It's not accessing my information. So I only ever hit allow once. Now you can hit allow while using the app, which means, again, if you close the app, it no longer has access to that information until you open up that app again. But I like to just always hit allow once. So when I open up the app, it asks me, I hit that button, so I know, hey, I'm never sharing my information, because maybe I forget to close down an app if I end up hitting, allow while using an app. And if I don't close it, then yeah, that thing's tracking me all day long. It's not like I'm traveling to, locations I shouldn't be, but hey, my information is my information. I don't share it, so I only ever hit allow once. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and we're going to take a look at the video here in a second, because we're going to show you exactly, but I figure I'll go ahead and kind of show you here. This article is turn location services GPS on or off on your iPhone. And basically, the location services, if we go back over here, you'll see, if we go to settings and then privacy, location services is here at the top. Once you click on location services, it brings you to this screen. And this here is kind of the thing that you want to focus on. It is a good idea for you to go ahead and turn on location services. A lot of people would want to say, well, I'll just turn it off and never share anything. Well, hey, if you do that, then just understand that you're pretty much not going to be able to use like a majority of the apps that you might want to be using. So turning on location services does not mean that you're immediately sharing all of your information with all these third-party developers and where you're located, etc., etc. All this is doing is simply telling the phone, like, hey, when I turn on some of these apps, then I can, it'll prompt me to allow while using the app, or allow once, or, don't allow. That's what that means. So you want to make sure that that basically is already turned on. Now, down below here, it'll show you some of the different apps that, would currently be like using. So like, for example, they say here, home, while using home, it's going to use your location services. Maps, hey, they've got it's set to, ask every single time. Syrian dictation while they're using it, system services, etc., etc. So I hope you kind of get the idea here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video. Okay, so we're going on to our test phone so you can see exactly how to get here. So we go into our settings, we're going to scroll down and click on privacy right there in blue. And you'll see location services up there at the top. And we're going to just kind of go through this video here. I'll highlight some different things. So location services right there at the top. Like I said, you just want to make sure that you leave location services on. You can see the different apps that I've got listed down here. The App Store, I basically say, it's never got access. My watch faces, hey, only while I'm using them. The app will work out, etc., etc. So a lot of these apps, they don't ever need to know where you are. So you can set them to never. Safari, for example, I don't need Safari to know where I'm at, ever. So if I need to turn that on, I can always come back in here, click on Safari websites, and then turn it on. So definitely take a time, after this video, and, look in your own phone and just kind of see what you've got turned on or what you've got turned off. But this is basically where you find all this information, and you can go, piece by piece and take a look at all of this. So we're going to go ahead and go back, and we'll take a look at some of the other features here under privacy as we scroll back up. So I hope that all makes sense. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and kind of look at tracking here really quick. So this is something new with the iOS 14. Allow apps to ask to track your activity across other companies' apps and websites. Apps that don't ask may still try to track your activity. So you want to make sure you've got that turned on, because that forces a lot of the third-party apps that they are now forced to ask you whether or not you will allow them to track you. So just something else that they're doing. So we clicked on photos here, and you can see I've got Proton Mail attached. So Proton Mail, I've given permission to have access to my camera and to my photos. So if I want to upload a photo to Proton Mail, I've got to give it permission. So I hope that kind of makes sense there, that like this is what privacy is showing you. It's all of the different apps. So I didn't give it access to the camera. I only gave Proton Mail access to my photos. So if I want to send an email and attach a photo, I can just do it that way. I mean, you can kind of see just there's a number of things here, you know, all the different apps that you're going to have here on your phone. They even allow you for the advertising, whether or not you're going to receive, you know, emails from Apple, whether or not you want to personalize your ads, if you could turn that off. I don't want personalized ads, so I'll just flip it off right there. And you can even click on like view targeting ad information, and that's basically just talking about personalized ads through the App Store for different kind of apps. This is analytics and improvements. This is Apple basically asking you like, hey, if you turn these things on, we will gather information from your phone, but the information we're going to gather has none of your personal information. It doesn't even have your Apple ID. The only information it's going to gather is generic information about the different apps and how you use those apps. That helps the engineers kind of find flaws and help fix them. Alrighty guys, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it. I hope you've got a better understanding of privacy, the way that it works, why your phone is something that you should really kind of be able to rest assured that your information is staying private. This is a lot of information to go over, so definitely make sure that you go back and like you open up these links, you know, read more about the privacy. Make sure you've got a good understanding, because it's really, really important that you do. Apple goes to great lengths to protect your privacy. They don't sell your information. So if your information is getting out there, guaranteed it's not because Apple put it out there. It's because other companies, or it's something that you've done by mistake, or a security flaw in a third-party app. But the iPhone, the iPad, these are something that you should actually have a lot of faith in. And guys, Apple does not pay me to tell you this. This is just my honest opinion about it. So anyway, if you found this to be helpful, I really appreciate it if you go ahead, hit like, and then hit subscribe. Come on back here, learn how to become an iPhone expert. And don't forget, share this video with your friends and family so I can turn them into iPhone experts as well. Once again, guys, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it, and I will catch you next time. See ya.